Geoff, whose price do you like at quarterback this week?
Oh, thank you for asking, Emerson. And by the way, you both look fantastic this morning. My pick at quarterback is predicated on the health of Andy Dalton. It's Justin Fields at 5,200. Look, 10 rush attempts last week. Everybody's all in a panic. Oh my God, he looked terrible for like 5 plays against the Bengals where they were trying to close out that game. It doesn't matter, okay? This is Justin Fields. He's going to be an upgrade over Andy Dalton. They're plus 7.5 point underdogs. It's going to be a good game script. He's going to be scoring points. Cleveland isn't that good a pass defense. Justin Fields at 5,200, if he starts, is a fantastic play for week 3.
How dare the Bears overlook St. Nick, Geoff. Kenny, whose quarterback do you like? Whose price?
Yeah, what does Kirk Cousins have to do around here to get a little more respect? He's $6,300. He's sitting here ripe for the pluck. And when you look at his season so far, back-to-back 25 DK fantasy point games, he's going against the vaunted Seattle secondary, the best secondary. No, this is a terrible, terrible pass defense. They got Blitz Boy coming around the corner, blowing all his assignments. They give up 271 yards a game through the air over the first 2 games. Kirk Cousins playing at home where he threw for 284 yards per game, a 111 passer rating last year. Loves to play in Minnesota. He's going to love playing this Seattle secondary, which is giving up just absolute rockets through the air. And not Patrick Mahomes, his name was first on my list here. But Ryan Tannehill last week had a fantastic game going for 347 yards. Obviously had a few more pass attempts in that game because of overtime. But still, this is a secondary that will get shredded. It was terrible last year. It's still terrible this year after losing Shaq Griffin. I really like Kirk Cousins in this spot. I think he goes for over 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, hits the bonus, great value.
Pearce, who are you looking to roster at quarterback?
Let's continue the trend of going cheap at quarterback and borderline too cute. Daniel Jones. Look at the matchup. Atlanta's allowed 540 yards passing in the first 2 games, 8 touchdown passes. Jones has looked pretty good, and he's faced 2 tough teams in Washington and Denver. Those are top-notch defenses that he's gone against and thrown for 250 yards in both games, a passing touchdown in both games. But the real appeal is what he's doing on the ground. He had 25 yards rushing in his first game and then 9 rushes for 95 yards against Washington. People are going to say, well, he can't do that. That's an outlier performance. He had a 55-yard touchdown called back. He looked really good in the RPO. Sure, at some point, teams are going to figure that out and be able to stop him on the ground, but it's not going to be Atlanta. Atlanta's terrible. Daniel Jones is a steal this week.
Yeah, he's got the 4th most fantasy points among quarterbacks through 2 weeks.
Ooh, a lot of usage there. What about at running back, Kenny?
At running back, I really am a big fan of taking Chris Carson in this same game at $6,400. When you look at Minnesota, they were 30th in rush DVOA this year. They've allowed the 25th. They ranked 25th in DKFP. 2 running backs this year. When you look at that defense, it is really banged up. Eric Kendricks was hurt last week. Anthony Barr and Everson Griffin might not play again. I think that this is a very good spot considering the Rashad Penny injury for Seattle. Chris Carson should be the bell cow back. And coming off of a week last week where he played incredibly well. And, I think this is also a game where we do get, potentially a run-heavy approach from Seattle if they take the lead from Minnesota after halftime. I think that Chris Carson is easily in store for 15 or more for DraftKings fantasy points. And I think at $6,400, it's just a little bit too cheap. You're not getting that injury to Penny priced in here.
Yeah, rushed 13 times for 31 yards and 2 touchdowns last time out. Pearce, where are you going at running back?
Nick Chubb, 7,600. The Browns might be without Landry and Odell Beckham. That means they're going to have to lean on the run. Chubb's looked great, 176 yards on 26 carries. He's been incredibly efficient, and he should get at least 15 carries in this matchup, and that's probably all you're going to need. The Bears have been pretty solid against the run so far, but with Chubb, it's not really a defense that you're going to have to fear. If we can just get 15 carries, give Chubb the ball. This should be a close game where he should get plenty of action. He might be underpriced here.
All right, Geoff, what do we think? Who do you want to roster at running back?
Yeah, I don't mind both those calls by the guys. I think we're all in the same vein here. Pay down a quarterback, pay up a running back. I like going to Austin Ekeler, though, more than Chubb at 7,200 right now. Again, you look at this game script. Ekeler is getting relieved by Roundtree and Justin Jackson a bit, but those guys aren't taking significant carries. They're just there to give Austin Ekeler a break. 9 targets in week 2. He had over 15 carries in week 1. So he is their lead back. And again, it doesn't matter what the game script is here for Ekeler. I mean, if the Chargers are behind, that's even better because he's just going to get more targets. I love Austin Ekeler in this game script. It's fast-paced. And, oh, by the way, the Chiefs have allowed 6.0 yards per carry against the worst mark in the league. This is a fantastic matchup for him.
Yeah, he did outcarry Justin Jackson and Larry Roundtree by a combined 9-5 margin. So pretty good.
Love it. Pearce, price check for us at wide receiver, please.
Sterling Shepard at 5,900. If I like Daniel Jones, I like Shepard with him. 113 yards and a touchdown, 7 receptions in his last game. He had 90 yards receiving in the first game. Again, those are tough matchups. He's running almost perfect routes. He's locked in with Daniel Jones. And he's got a great matchup this week against Atlanta, who has been absolutely torched by wide receivers.
All right. How about you, Kenny?
Yeah, let's stick with this theme of injuries. Juju Smith-Schuster at $6,000 is expensive, but he should be getting a monster target share here when you consider the injury to Deontay Johnson that was suffered at the end of that loss to Las Vegas on the last play. It was a freak thing. Look, Juju already has 15 targets through 2 games. And when you look at Deontay Johnson, he was garnering 22 targets over the first 2 games. So if he misses this game, there's going to be a ton of the ball to go around here. And Juju is a guy that is really depended on by the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's sort of the elder statesman of that receiving core. Again, he's been very involved in this offense for the last 2 years, although he hasn't had that explosive, big game ability, really. He's just been very consistent, very sound. And I think with a matchup with the Bengals, they're allowing over 70% of passes to be completed. You look at this defense, it is banged up. Trey Waynes missed the game in week 2, could miss week 3. And if Trey Waynes is out, that's going to be a massive, massive edge for the Pittsburgh Steelers throwing the football. And we know that they love to throw. I think Juju could see 10 or more targets here, get himself 100 yards, and have a very big game. And I think he is worth paying up for. I think this price also may keep people away in GPPs. I think it could be a sneaky pivot play.
Geoff, which wide receiver is priced just right?
Well, we all know who the fantasy darling at wide receiver is right now, right? I mean, it's the guy who's just smoked the slate 2 weeks in a row. It's Cooper Kupp. Everyone loves Cooper Kupp. Well, guess what? You know what's happening. You know what's about to happen. The rug pull is coming. Robert Woods at 5,700 is my favorite play at wide receiver. Look, he had the same amount of targets as Kupp last week. It's just the big plays went to Kupp. I get it. It's a nice connection with Stafford and Kupp. I'm not saying you don't have to play Cooper Kupp for the rest of the year, but at some point, Robert Woods is going to break out. Matthew Stafford's playing really well, and you look at the matchup this week. Tampa Bay already second last in terms of fantasy points allowed to the wide receivers. Teams just throw so much against Tampa. They're averaging opponents against Tampa over 50 pass attempts per game. I expect a pass-heavy game plan from the Rams here regardless because Darrell Henderson's banged up. I absolutely love the Robert Woods pivot in this spot. I love Matthew Stafford as a play too, so you can pair those two, but I think Woods is going to be the low-owned GPP play that breaks through this week.
All right, Geoff, take us to tight end. Who's your dude? In a surprise to absolutely no one, Travis Kelce is by far the most expensive tight end on this slate.
Yeah, and look, I mean, maybe I'll leave Kelce for one of the other guys. I think there's a couple obvious plays, and I'm going to talk about the other one. That's wide receiver 1, TJ Hawkinson. 20 targets through 2 games. Really good matchup, in my opinion, against Baltimore, who isn't so good covering against the middle of the field against tight ends. They just allow a lot of receptions to that area. And look, maybe Baltimore breaks this Jared Goff facade that's going on and they get a ton of pressure, but at the same time, you're probably going to get some late passing from Jared Goff, similar to what we saw in the Packers game last week. 5,200, I think you're going to see TJ Hawkinson up with Kelce and Waller in the top 3 tight ends for fantasy by the time the season's done. 5,200 right now, way too cheap for this guy.
All right, Kenny, who do you like at tight end?
Yeah, how about a guy that was a really popular pick all year last year? Now he's only $4,800, and he's had a great start to the season. It's Noah Fant, 13 DraftKings fantasy points per game so far. He's got 14 total targets. I know it's not the 20 that TJ Hawkinson has garnered, but this is a passing offense that's looked really, really formidable for the Denver Broncos. When you look at a matchup with the Jets, they are historically terrible against tight ends. This team has never been able to cover tight ends dating back to the Rob Gronkowski Patriots days. They still just, again, they have a great front 4, but they have not really found a way to, guard over the middle of the field. They have some issues there. I think Noah Fant should get plenty of targets, and also 4 red zone targets already. That is 13th in the National Football League. So Noah Fant should get some love in the red zone here. He's already got a touchdown on the board against Jacksonville. I think with a soft matchup against a terrible, terrible Jets secondary, Fant should eat.
Cover your ears, Fireman Ed. When you talking bad about the
Hey,
Jets.
we're out on Fireman Ed. It's all about Jetman now. Fireman Ed's a fraud.
All right, Pearce, what do we think at tight end?
Let's go back to Kyle Pitts at 4,900. Took a step forward last week, 5 catches for 73 yards. We're going to continue to see him develop and progress. And, hey, the other team in New York can't guard tight ends either. The Giants have allowed the 3rd most points to tight ends, 16 catches for 149 yards and 2 touchdowns. And, if you're going to stack Jones and Shepard, he is a great run back option.